So welcome everyone to Pause and Pivot. I'm Margarita V, your host for this session. The book for today is Love 2.0. Psychologist Barbara Fredrickson is going to offer a different perspective. She invites us to see love not as a permanent state or as a promise, but more as a momentary experience of shared connection. Something that arises when two or more people genuinely meet each other, even briefly, with openness and care. And what makes this book especially powerful is that it's not just philosophical, it's biological. So we're going to dive into the science of the biology of love, drawing on research in positive psychology as well as neuroscience and physiology. Dr. Fredrickson shows us that love lives in the body. When we experience real moments of connection, our nervous systems respond, our brains synchronize, and our bodies begin to change in ways that support health, resilience, and well-being. So most of us probably grew up thinking about love as something kind of tied to romance, commitment, or long-term relationships, right? We often think of love as something we have in our lives or as something that's missing from our lives. Rather, we want to switch and pivot to a new view, something that's happening all the time. And growing in that capacity and that confidence to say that we can view this often and in very small and ordinary moments in our life. But before we go further, I want to name the spirit of this space. So welcome to Pause and Pivot. This is for anyone who loves books, ideas, and just thinking about meaningful conversation. And who's curious about what happens when we slow down together. Think of this as a circle of friends, pausing to share insights, stories, questions, and lived experiences. We're not here to really debate or perform, but just to listen, reflect, and explore what resonates. And the magic is when we start to share those stories together. So here, our books are our companions, or like cookies that we love them and we eat them up. They're not conclusions or things to really think hard about. They're just going to help us uncover the magic that happens when ideas meet real life. So our intention is simple. We're just going to pause together, share stories, explore insights, and connect around what helps us thrive. So with that spirit, let's begin by welcoming the people who are here to bring this conversation to life. Let's start today by introducing our co-host today. All right, we have with us today Colin. Hello, Colin. Thanks for being here.
Greetings. How are you today?
Fantastic. Are you excited about this book?
Very excited to be here. Love the topic, and thanks for introducing me to this book. I'm a big fan of science-based information, and I had no idea about much of what Dr. Fredrickson has to share.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you. Thank you for the excitement and enthusiasm. And like we said, it's not about reading the whole book or even most of it. It's like being curious about this idea. And now that we're in February, it's the idea to pause and say, how can we look at love from like a totally different direction, right? So if
Yeah.
you're watching this recording, even if it's not February, I invite you to just pause and think about what is one word or a phrase that captures what you're most curious to explore around this idea of a new way to look at love, whether it's the concept of love, the belief around love, how we form connections, or the curiosity about the body, the biology of love. Anything that comes up for you, just write it down in your wellness journal, or if you have our worksheet from today, go ahead and grab that out, have that ready for you, and just note what you're most curious to really explore and understand around the concepts today. Welcome to today's brief overview of this book, Love 2.0 by Barbara Fredrickson, PhD. So as we begin, I want to name what this book is inviting us to do. Love 2.0 isn't asking us to redefine love in a philosophical or romantic way. It's asking us to look at love through a different lens, to understand love in a biological way, and through relational ways in which we can experience and put ourselves in the way of experiencing love in the body. So Fredrickson is offering us this new lens. Love is something that happens in real time, something we can note, presence, feel, and measure in the body and between people. My intention here is to give you a simple, clear map of that lens so we can begin to discuss some of the ideas that come up for each of us. So when you think of love, what's one word that comes up for you? For most of us, love comes up with this concept of what Barbara refers to as love 1.0, viewing love from the romantic lens and from the view of long term and it being sort of more exclusive. So the dominant cultural story for most of us is kind of inherited. So just keeping in mind, what is your belief? What are your ideas of love as it comes to you? Is it more of that romantic, long-term, exclusive idea? And this is mostly tied a lot to our identity, right? Whether we're married or with a partner, single, divorced. So this idea of security might also come up, or the idea of success. And there's nothing wrong with this model, but it's limited. So Barbara says that by looking at love through this love 1.0, it places love in a narrow container and often makes it feel scarce, something we either have or don't have. So introducing her concept of love 2.0, this widens the lens dramatically. Love becomes momentary and relational, something that actually arises in small interactions, not just big relationships. It's widely accessible, biologically measurable, and co-created. So simply, this is a profound shift. Love is no longer something we possess, it's something that emerges when certain conditions are present. So she says that love blossoms virtually anytime two or more people, and it can be strangers, that two or more people connect over a shared positive emotion. And the simple quote is one of the most disruptive ideas in the book. Fredrickson is saying that love doesn't require a long-term history or that single commitment or even familiarity. The new concept is that it basically requires connection. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But these moments, while they may be brief, they are not trivial. She argues that these micro moments of connection actually accumulate and shape our well-being over time. So think about the last time that you have that instant connection with someone. Did you feel that idea of what that love feels in your body? That's what we're getting to, is that biological impression and experience of this shared moment of positivity. So who is Barbara? Let's dive in a little bit. Dr. Barbara Fredrickson is a social psychologist and emotions researcher. She's a professor at the University of North Carolina and considered a pioneer in this new and emerging field of positive psychology, and the creator of the broaden and build theory, which she expanded on in her first book, Positivity. Essentially, her work builds and bridges psychology with neuroscience, biology, and flourishing. And to learn more about her, you can look at her website at positivityresonance.com. And so here, it's important to pause and acknowledge the source of these ideas from an interdisciplinary approach. It's not just the neuroscience or just the biology or the psychology of relationships. It's the magic that can happen when researchers and scientists broaden their lens and have the courage to apply their decades of research, in this case with Barbara, across psychology, neuroscience, and biology. And she says that this is not poetic language. This is about evidence-based ideas. So let's dive in on what is love. So in love, with this book that Barbara is talking about, we arrive at the core framework of the book. Fredrickson defines love as essentially positivity resonance. Essentially, love arises when three things are present at the same time. So the idea of having the presence and a shared positive emotion. Number two is that mutual care and concern. And number three, biological synchrony. And this is sort of like tuning in or mirroring or really having our brains kind of being in sync with that heart rate harmonizing, feeling similar hormones being experienced in the body, and sort of syncing up the neural patterns in the brain. All of this is what is the potential when we experience all three. And this is where love moves from being an abstract idea into a measurable phenomena. Our bodies literally begin to sync in these moments. So, love as positivity resonance is how it's being redefined. So, she also says that love as positivity resonance is the engine that fuels optimal health. Amazing. This is one of the strongest claims in the book, where Fredrickson is saying that love isn't just supportive of health, it actually fuels it. So these moments of resonance affect our immune system, our emotional regulation, and resilience. Love then becomes less about the intensity and the exclusivity and more about the repetition, the steady accumulation of the positive benefits of connection over time. So, this slide reminds us that love has a chemical signature and it is communicating in so many different areas, organs, and cells around the body. You may be familiar with these neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, but just know that all over our body there are chemical messengers. So, dopamine plays a role in motivation and reward. Serotonin really looks at that mood regulation, and oxytocin, it's going to really look at how it's powering up our bonding and our ability to trust and connect and feel good. So Fredrickson points, she isn't just looking to reduce love to chemistry, but we want to know the different vocabularies, and she wants to show that our experiences of connection are deeply embodied in the body. What we feel emotionally is mirrored in our neurobiology. And prime importance in this whole landscape is love and the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve, if you're brand new to it, is known as the 10th cranial nerve, and it's a primary communication pathway between the brain and the body. It plays a major role in calming the nervous system, regulating the heart, digestion, and in our capacity for social connection, among other things. So, Barbara says that love actually strengthens the vagal nerve. So, when we experience moments of love as positivity resonance, we're strengthening what's called vagal tone, our nervous system's ability to move out of stress and into safety and connection. So, the higher vagal tone in our body is going to help us strengthen emotional regulation, social connection, stress recovery, and physical health. All of that with love and its interplay with the vagus nerve. So, love is no longer just this idea of emotionally feeling good, it's actually physiological training. So, in this way, love becomes a powerful guide to overall health and well-being. So, why Love 2.0 matters? In a world shaped by chronic stress, disconnection, and digital overload, the primary research behind Love 2.0 reminds us that small moments matter. Connection is trainable, and love is a daily practice. So, this overall framework matters because, again, the world we're living in is full of chronic stress, loneliness, and the digital overload, which shapes our nervous system every day. So, Love 2.0 offers a counterbalance, not through grand gestures, but through the small, repeatable moments of connection that restore regulation and resilience. Love is not constant or unconditional. It comes and goes moment by moment. So, how will we choose to look for and create those micro moments of positivity resonance throughout our day? So, as we begin to wrap up our review of the book, reminding us that Love 2.0, the new definition is love equals moments of positivity resonance, and how we can put ourselves in the way of experiencing more of those each day. To close this orientation, remembering that love is not a possession or a personality trait. It's something that happens in moments of shared presence, care, and connection. Now that we have this map, we can turn toward what stood out for you and how this framework might already be showing up in your own life. This book again draws from neuroscience, physiology, social psychology, and contemplative practices like loving kindness meditation, which she focuses on in part 2. So it has a chock full of totally detailed meditations that you can do to practice the ideas that she outlines in part 1. So check out the book for more goodness on the science in part 1 and the practical applications of exploring loving kindness meditations or different mindfulness practices that will help you experience and embody what she's talking about as love through the biology. Overall, Dr. Fredrickson says that our bodies are designed for love, and that even small moments of connection can charge and can change our health, our resilience, and our sense of belonging over time. So my friends, that's a quick look at the book. Okay, this took about 6 hours or so for me to get through, and it is just chock full of tons and tons. Every single page is like chock full of underlines. So I hope you get it. I hope it intrigues you, and I hope you get a chance to check it out. So any comments, Colin? What came up for you as we were just getting this idea initially on like broadening that idea of what love could possibly be viewed as?
Well, I think probably one of the things that surprised me the most was the idea that, so I've been in a process myself of recognizing that I am a process instead of just considering myself this static human entity. I've realized I'm nothing like the human I was a year ago. And it's made me acknowledge it. So I've been in this conversation with myself now for a couple of years in my own writing and exploring. But to all of a sudden be faced with this concept that love is the same way, love is a process, and that you can, instead of just like you said, and this is that place where I realized, oh my God, this is where love gets taken for granted. Oh, I'm in love. Okay. But did you feel that today? Did you feel that? And that's what immediately popped up. I was like, am I engaging in that love experience daily? Am I in the process daily? And it was, I mean, thankfully, I can say that I am now, but I recognize and acknowledge there were many years of my life that I just put it on a shelf and called it love. You know what I mean?
Yep, totally. And thank you for speaking to that. Again, it's the idea that we have beliefs, we have sort of set ideas about different parts of our lives that just get filed away as this is how reality is. And she calls this out in the book to say that for the most part, early research on love was around, the big love and the importance of having that deep intimacy and connection. And so what she's focusing on in this research is to say, hold the phone, hold the second, there's actually a ton of benefit by having those micro moments of positivity. She calls it positivity resonance. And that by having 3 to 5 of those throughout the day it boosts our immune system and allows us to feel good more often. So whenever we can feel good, we're sort of at that higher level of vibration and closer to the tipping point of then taking those healthier, more loving, more compassionate, friendly actions. So I love that. And so the open invitation is to say, can we be open to redefine, like, what is my belief around love and the concept of romantic love? And that's the only love. And again, there's lots of different views and theories. There's the concepts from the Bible and agape love and the love of mother or father and the love of siblings and different types of love. So we're actually looking at sort of the biological view of love. And look at that. And just like that, we had a little love drop join us. Awesome. Wonderful to have you here with us.
I made it.
Hi.
Hi,
You
guys.
made
Hooray.
it. You just dropped
Wow.
in as a little love drop. Good to see
Right,
you.
and I am
Welcome.
dropping in, and I may just then be in listening mode, but I wanted to be here. Just
Yay.
wanted to see you
Wonderful.
guys.
That's so good. So it's perfect timing because now I'm going to anoint myself with some rose spritz to smell just that amazing,
Yeah.
like how do we put ourselves in this state, right? So it's like smelling the beautiful rose, one of the highest vibration essential oils in the world that bring us to that level, choosing to anoint and integrate ourselves or align ourselves with those vibrations, our environment, what we smell, what we see, these beautiful people joining us today. These fuel my heart, charge my soul. So thank you so much for joining. We just kind of gave a highlight of the book, Love 2.0. Woo! And so we're going to go through the big four ideas. Do you have a quick share? Like, what do you think about the topic in general? Colin just shared his idea for love is just having it's a process, as we ourselves are like always a work in process. How that love can also be viewed through this book as looking at it's a thing we're always working on, and that's a good
I
thing.
Yes, 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 resounding yes. And I think this book was, and thank you for bringing this book and love to light in a new way. It's funny, I paired it kind of with my other favorite book, which I love, The Gift by Lewis Hyde, which is an incredible book. And that's based on reciprocity, right? Having studied it like from an anthropological lens and then having love now, you know, with an empiricist lens, right? Because that's what she is. This is a whole new framework for me. And I'm so grateful for it, frankly, because I was wondering if there was something wrong with me looking at love from an empirical standpoint, because I think it is experiential, right? So this was validation, and there were certain things that were also a whole new way of looking at love. So really grateful for that, that if you will, eye-opening but heart-opening experience in a way too,
Yeah.
and the fact that there's hope in that. There's actually, I found it hopeful.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you for that. And I'm going to probably go into listening mode shortly, but I'm here with you guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. So happy to have you here. All right, so let's go ahead and now dive into the big four ideas. Again, there's a ton of ideas. I highlighted so much of the book. So let's just look at four ideas that we can talk about. All right, big idea number one is this idea of love is not a thing or this concept out there, right? It's a micro moment. So Barbara Fredrickson helps us to redefine love as a brief, renewable moment of shared positive connection. So rather than love being like this permanent state, right? Having that relationship in place or having that set commitment, she asks us again to broaden our ideas and to say, what if love, this biological, embodied, felt sensation and experience of love, emerges whenever two or more people connect over a shared positive emotion? Even if only for a few seconds. So just think about that today or yesterday. When was the last time you felt sort of a brief shared positive emotion in the grocery checkout line, when you were waiting to pick up your kids or checking out a library book at the library? Just even a few seconds, or at the gym. I was at the gym on a spin class and we're high-fiving each other in class, and it was just wonderful feeling. She says that what matters most is not how long love lasts, but how often it is created. So, a quote from her book is, love is the momentary upwelling of three tightly interwoven events. Okay, shared positive emotion, number one. Number two, a biobehavioral synchrony. And then we can go into that if we want. And number three, mutual care. So as Archana was saying, it's sort of like this reciprocity, sort of like we have the best intention of showing up to connect and share that positivity. And by doing that, by reflecting that presence and that energy and that focus and intention, the body picks up on it, and it's truly like magic. The brains start to synchronize, the brains start to pick up the vibration, and then we reflect that with each other, and then it becomes this sort of upward spiral. But it's a micro moment. So micro moment, the big idea here is Fredrickson emphasizes that love is fleeting, but as we shared recently now, is the hope is here that it is forever renewable. So love is fleeting because just like an emotion, emotions arise and go. But love is fleeting, but forever renewable. Bonds may last, marriages, friendships, families. But the experience of love must be continuously recultivated through presence and that intentional connection. So that's the first big idea. Wondering what's coming up for you guys. If you've ever experienced like a brief moment of that connection, or how this is landing with you guys.
Well, it's so interesting because the initial commentary that we made points to the things that have been on my mind, but as you spoke, so as we've talked about before, my little family, my wife and I and our two sons who we take care of, every morning we walk. We go to the YMCA in the wintertime here in Wisconsin where it's freezing, and we walk, and we've gotten to know these, I think of them as little old people, but they're my age. But there's a woman there. Her name's Dory, and she dyes her hair blue, and she's a few years older than me, and she just lost her husband just a few weeks ago, or just last month. And as you were talking just right now, I realized we create moments of love. We meet the three requirements every time we walk with Dory, because we have interaction, it's nice, but in the moment that we're all going to part ways, whether she's got to leave or we got to leave, she comes up, we look at each other, we say goodbye, she gives each one of us a hug, my boys, my wife, me, and I realized that, and we actually have now started expressing love. We actually say, love you, it's good to see you. But what I realize now is that those moments that we were having before, we were creating that love experience. And I realized that, like right now, I would say, oh, I love Dory. But I recognize now that what I'm saying right now is I'm describing the moments when I experience love with Dory. And I never had that perspective before. This is actually quite cool.
It puts you in that driver's seat, right? Like I can create these moments of positivity, resonance. And then the next idea, which she offers, is how to be more present and feel like, and be aware of like, how am I feeling it in my body? Because when we experience emotions, it trickles into those neurochemical reactions in our body, right? We get those neuropeptides being released with oxytocin that impact not only our brain, but our body cells. So the question is, how are we feeling that expression? Like you are now aware, I'm expressing love. And the next question is to complete that feedback loop of how am I feeling it? Can you remember?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I can absolutely remember, and I recognize sensation of love, but this is one of those things that it's like telling someone what salt tastes like, right? It's like trying to express with words the inexpressible, but it is a deep sensation of connection, of really just being present, completely accepting of the other human, total allowance of their being, I guess you would call it. And this is a human that we've only met not that long ago. We haven't known her that long, but it's that realization that the event of love is different than the talking about the event of love.
Yes, that's it. That's where she says it's not a thing, the thing you're talking about. It's the experiential, the embodied experience. And it's literally changing the makeup of our body drop by drop, just like an emotion dropping into our mind, into our body. So we are, as you said, now you are stepping into creation mode. I love it. Okay. All right. So let's move on to big idea number 2, which is the body is the authority on love. So instead of thinking about it, right, and wanting it and it's missing or whatever, it's like, oh, let's go into the body where I have maybe more capacity and more ability to do something about it, right? It's feeling that connection. So the core idea here is that love is not just something like that we just feel. It is a full body biological event. The body's amazing. It's like this river, always changing. What are we putting into it? So during moments of what Dr. Fredrickson calls positivity resonance, our brains actually begin to synchronize with the person that we are beginning to connect with. And then oxytocin, which is known as kind of like that love hormone, it's a neuropeptide, and it flows. And then the vagus nerves strengthens, that amazing nerve that connects, the 10th cranial nerve that connects from our brain, connects through our different organs and connects to the heart. And even gene expression related to immunity and inflammation can change. And folks, this is huge for a time such as these when we're all stressed, constantly distracted, feeling perhaps disconnected, and maybe a lot of isolated feelings. So over time, these micro moments, whether you're feeling and sitting in moments of loneliness, that is actually worse in our body than actually being alone. So the feelings and experience of loneliness versus love are worlds apart, and the changes that it's happening in our body is so different. So these micro moments of positivity resonance actually build health. They improve our resilience, and they help to shape that whole body vitality. So a quote, she says, I'm not just taking poetic license when I compare love to oxygen and food. New science shows how love and its absence alters the biochemistry in which your body is steeped, even influencing how your DNA is expressed. So we're talking about epidemiology, right? How our behaviors influence the cell expressions and therefore our health, and all of that falls from that. So research cited in the book shows that chronic loneliness can be more damaging to health than smoking, 2 packs a day, excessive alcohol use, or obesity. While when we have frequent, warm positivity resonance, this lowers our risk for heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and inflammatory illnesses. So when we think about that, sort of 2 pathways, right? In yoga, we call it the pathway of ama and the pathway of ojas. Ama is sort of the pathway of like toxins and things that are not helpful or serving our mind-body complex. And ojas is sort of this healthy expression of the vitality of being. So with every choice, whether you're eating food, breathing oxygen, or in this case, what thoughts and emotions we choose to drop into our brain that then sends out those neurochemical messengers, we are literally filling our mind-body complex with drop by drop. So are we feeding that loneliness and debilitating aspect of the sensation of loneliness, or are we feeding the pathway of love and connection? So, if you're watching at home, take a moment to really just note down, how does it change your perspective to think of love as a new form of health practice? Love as a new habit, a daily habit. and not just as an emotion. Okay, so I'll pause there and see if there's any other shares. What do you think, Colin?
So a couple of things. The the neurobiology and just the physiology of love is something that I have studied a little bit. Obviously, this book will advance me uh, exponentially. But when you describe the vagus nerve, what one of the things I learned in the recent past that really has helped me recognize the importance of the somatics, the body bodily experience, is that that nerve has two pathways, one from the body to the brain and one from the brain to the body. And the body to the brain actually carries 80% of the information, and the brain to the body is 20. And so what it did when I found that out was made me think, all this time I thought I was telling my body what to do, but my body's been telling my brain what to do. And so now you put in this, I'm going to just call it a technology, the technology of love here. And now all of a sudden I can see how everything you listed, I've heard those statistics before about how loneliness will kill you faster than cigarettes or whatever. I've heard that stuff before, but now for the first time, like I'm seeing how that works. So that's the first thing that really I wrangled with for a while. But then the next thing was, what if we self-generate that?
Mm.
What if we don't wait for another human to come into our radius? What if we love ourselves, Maggie? How wild would that be? What if we loved life? Oh my God, you've really launched me here into like I say, we could go on and on, but I'm telling you, this is exciting. This is exciting news.
I love that you picked that out, and you're already pointing to what she focuses on the part two. So, part two of Love 2.0 is a whole series of different types of behaviors, mindfulness practices. You can go right in, and actually, she outlines in detail the loving kindness meditation that is from the Buddhist tradition. But if that doesn't resonate with you, there's other dogma-free type practices that work with the science of the mind-body connection. And basically, it is about awakening that connection and starting with self first. So I love that you pointed that out, to understand that we have the capacity, the ability, and with a simple practice of 1 to 2 minutes of priming ourselves first. How about that? Priming ourselves to go out and do that connection, to be ready to look for the good and to be ready to connect with those that we resonate with. So I love that you pointed that out. That's part of the secret sauce in this book. So get the book if you want to dive into more of that. So let's start with ourselves first. And that's why the power of meditation, right? You start that in the early morning hours before the input starts to derail us and we start to show up in reactionary mode. We choose and consciously make that decision to prime ourselves, to connect, to ground and connect ourselves with that which fuels us, right? And when we showed up in that higher vibration, then we're that much more powerful when we connect with someone to then have that exchange, that reciprocal exchange. So it just amps everything up. And so I love that you pointed that out. Thank you, Colin. Okay. So let's go on to the next idea. Big idea number 3 is love requires 3 things: safety, presence, and slowing down. So it's no surprise, right? But sometimes we have to say the obvious to kind of really understand why it's important. So Dr. Fredrickson says that love does not arise automatically or unconditionally. Now, you might just stop there and say, what? We're supposed to have unconditional love, right? Well, again, it's a different type of love, right? the agape love, the spiritual love, the love of parents and kids and things like that. But for the discussions of what we're looking at is through the biology to understand how emotions trickle into the body. This is, she says that there is a requirement that it depends on specific conditions. And so the hope here is that once we learn these three specific conditions, we can then go about our way to create those conditions, to set about our environment and the experiences we have throughout the day that present the conditions to prime us to then more effortlessly and more frequently have those micro moments of positivity resonance. So her research shows that love requires a perception of safety, real-time presence, which is really hard these days, right? And then a sensory connection, okay? Sensory, so whether it's like touch or eye contact, looking into the eye of your beloved or your new friend that you just met on the bus, or your tone of voice, or your facial expression, or even like leaning in. And that all begins to create what she says is sort of this shared rhythm. Like we're almost doing a dance and connecting as we're tuning in and creating this specific conditions where we are primed to connect. So given our fast, distracted culture, love really can just disappear. Not because it's gone or it wasn't worth it or it wasn't real, but because we're simply moving too quickly to notice it or to allow it in. And I really want that to sink in. So if you're listening to the recording, maybe pause and think about that. The number of times where we've missed out those connection possibilities because we're just too speedily going through the day. We're just too plugged into out there that we're not able to plug in first. So we're open, we're broadening to open the cell receptors of love. So there's a quote, and she says that, love grows best when you're physically and emotionally present. It requires that you slow down. So this book highlights, that having constant anxiety, kind of spinning out all the time to the stressors, sort of swimming in loneliness and what we're missing, and then having this chronic low levels of self-esteem, all of these kind of threaten that sense of perception, which biologically will kind of put up a wall, or it blocks the nervous system from forming positivity resonance. So many of us, from our ACE, our adverse childhood experiences, or different experiences in relationships, or even different cultural norms, think about how we hold our beliefs of what love is, or how we are supposed to be together in relationship with others, and how this is connected to how we deal with the stressors of life, those chronic inputs. All of these are either serving as biological blocks to the nervous system, or we're learning to defend with putting up walls, right? So it's important to understand, how can we feel safe to truly connect with others and really be open to all of the benefits that we talked about earlier when we experience and express and share that micro moment of positivity. It doesn't have to be a sense of that intimacy with your partner, but the connection, almost the exchange of love with your eye glance. It could be so simple, the micro effort. So thinking about where in your life might you be experiencing this feeling of maybe love is missing? Again, not because it's gone, but what if we look at just because you might feel too rushed or too distracted? And again, this leads to our worksheet. So if you have our worksheet, you can put in there, how can these micro moments of love connection now be a sort of powerful bridge as a way to pause and then pivot to our new practice of love as a practice. Yeah, so that might be totally different, right? Love as a practice. What do you think, Colin?
Well, again, here we go. But I'll comment initially on the idea of safety. I love that you named, or that she named, safety as one of the requirements, because I'd been married for 25 years before I realized the critical nature of emotional safety in a loving relationship. In fact, I didn't even know what emotional safety was until I had some experiences with my wife where I realized there's such a thing as an emotional body, or if you don't want to call it an emotional body, an emotional essence that each human has. And depending on the level of safety that you are providing or is being provided for you, it either expands or contracts your capacity to love. Because that wall that you talked about, it's a very real thing. If you put up the wall to protect yourself, it may protect you from emotional unsafety, but it also blocks your capacity to have that experiential moment of love. And so I will just say that in my experience, this realization of the critical nature of emotional safety is profound, just profound. And then that presence is so critical in all of our experience. But my youngest son is one that requires a lot of attention. And it's so easy for me at times to just, put up he's wanting attention, he needs attention. And in those moments, those wonderful moments where we're just in that cool experience of I'm present, he's there, he wants attention, and we have that little glance, and it's something that I did not expect. When I first heard about the fact that my sons were disabled and I'd be taking care of them the rest of my life, I thought of it as a burden. But there are at least a few moments every day where I have this experience that you're talking about, where there's safety, there's presence, and there's, tell me the third one.
There's
You just went
safety,
blank.
presence, and let me make sure, slowing down.
Slowing down. In those moments where I slow down, which is kind of a prerequisite for presence if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm present and aware and safe, I've realized that I kind of have the blessing of having a couple of permanent toddlers in my house that are always there going, Dad, 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 and I actually feel like it's keeping me young. I really do.
Mm-hmm. And we're learning it probably is, biologically speaking, I love how we're connecting this live with your experiences, lived experiences, and this is what we're here to do, right? Is take the amazing research and ideas from these fabulous authors and match it up with like everyday life, the reality of applying it, and how we're sharing it here, through our unique lens, our unique cultural perspectives and lived perspectives. So for anybody listening at home, join us in future sessions. So we'd love to hear your stories. We'd love to hear your lived experiences, because as we share, we really normalize what we are experiencing and the questions, starting to live these curious questions of how we can then explore and put into practice some of these ideas to make that impact now, today, in these small ways and powerful ways. So thank you for sharing that, Colin. I really see that, and I appreciate that beautiful experience and expression of micro moments of love you have with your family, and that you are now receiving and feeling like it's making me feel younger. And now we know that in fact, drop by drop, we are providing, like she says, inner resources for our body. All right, let's go to this one. It's maybe my favorite. I don't know. There's so many. Like I said, I just underlined almost the whole book. So big idea number 4 is love creates that upward spiral. I just love, 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 love. So, okay, so this builds on her broaden and build theory from her other book. So she says, love doesn't just feel good in the moment. It builds lasting inner resources that makes future love more likely. Each experience of positivity resonance strengthens emotional regulation. Okay, so it also improves resilience, social intelligence, and physical health, which we were just talking about. And this in turn increases openness to connection. So again, when we feel good or better, it's like we level up to that higher vibration. So we're at that higher activation point so we can actually increase our openness to connection. Love quite literally begets more love. That's the idea of the power of love. She says that through love, you become a better version of yourself, right? Because we open up. We're ready, we're primed to connect. And as your better self, you experience love more readily. Isn't that great? More readily. So she describes love as part of a reciprocal system. We understand that, right? We give and take love. It's not a pure give and exchange. It's this upward spiral of being mirrors to each other. It's like love builds resources inside ourselves. And then as those resources build up, it's like we're being charged. And this increases our capacity, our ability, our readiness to make those connections, even with ourselves and with others. And that capacity invites even more love, because when that feels good, guess what? We want to do that more often, right? A smile feels good. Someone that says good morning to you first and gives you a smile, that feels good. And then what do? We keep smiling, and maybe we share that with someone else. So this creates a self-sustaining upward spiral. And this applies not just to individuals, but in her book, she also goes into the science of how this also applies to like communities. And so the more we intentionally show up in these communities where people are oriented or open to, first of all, having that felt sense of love for ourselves or openness to that. We may not feel great, but we're open to it. And then getting busy into the practice of how do we slow down, how do we show up connected, and doing all those things. Then we build these communities that can then be the sensation, can give us the feeling and sensation like we're spiraling each other up. And so that is why we're joining here, my friends. Because it'd be great for me to read this book by myself, and I've read all these books by myself, and that's not as much fun as sharing it with you. And as we said, we are here to get more people to read books because they change lives. If we can move the needle on that 40% of adults in the US that didn't even read one book last year. So if we can move the needle on that, and if we can encourage more people to just join together and have discussions about ideas in the books, in ideas in general, we can then have these more micro moments of positivity resonance and spend more time with those individuals and communities that spark our growth, that fuel our readiness for more of these love moments and more of the drops of oxytocin and other chemicals that fuel us for that higher vibration of love. Okay, so thinking about just everyday actions, they can actually help prime the pump for more connection in life. You know, for me, as I mentioned earlier, it's like meditation is my keystone habit. If I have that at the top of my arc, the one that sets in stone, and that just helps support everything else, when I do that, then everything else is strengthened, and that primes me to just show up in that higher vibration, more open and ready to then have those connections more easily. So I'd love to hear, Colin, anything come up for you with that share?
I guess more than anything, what you've helped me recognize is the critical nature of those moments that at times I just pass right over. I have these moments. I have them my wife and I have our little session that we do every morning. And we have those quick moments of a glance or a smile or something, or like you said, a shared sorrow, where we both say, "Oh my God," you know. But what it's done is it's helped me put into context. I've felt blessed in my life, but it's helped me put into context that I'm a blessed human. I have, I have, I live with 3 humans every day that I have at least a few of these moments with every day. And I had never, ever contemplated the sheer value of that, you know? And you think about it, Maggie, most people my age, I'm 65, I'm in that retirement mode. And many people are alone. And many people like, I mean, my mom ended up alone after they divorced, and my in-laws were together, but they were not happy.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I mean, just as you've been talking, spinning through my mind is all the opportunities missed, all the moments that could have been, all the actually health giving moments that were there as a potential, you know. And it's just this time with you today is it's just altered my perspective so profoundly. I am going to absolutely have to read this book. My God.
Yay, happy dance, happy dance, happy dance. I love it, you guys. So that is so amazing. I mean, literally, chock full. I just underlined everything in this book. And again, part one is the science, the research behind that, Barbara Fredrickson, Love 2.0. And part two is like half of the book is all meditations, just micro moments of different ways to explore it and experience it more often. So grab the book. Grab your wellness journal and try out one experience this week. And in the month of February, when we're looking at, not just Valentine's Day, but throughout the whole month, could be a beautiful opportunity for every day to pick one micro practice and explore it. And as Colin was just beautifully saying, what's already happening that we haven't understood and folded into our new expanded belief system of what love is, how we can experience the biological, embodied experience of love as we're now becoming aware of how emotions release those neuropeptides like oxytocin, and they fuel our body for not just feeling good, but experiencing the sense of love, connection, and fueling our body for health, longevity, better immunity, and being primed to be open to life. What's the best that can happen if we actually try exploring that? So, Love 2.0, Barbara Fredrickson, love it, love it, love it. This is the first time I read it. Actually, the second time I read it in 2013. So 13 years ago I read it. Oh my God. And I just reread it again. So it was a quick read, about six hours. So I encourage you to read it. And then, so as we close today, I want to leave us with a simple reframe. So if love is not something we possess, but something we practice, if love is not a permanent state, but a series of renewable micro moments, and if love lives not just in our thoughts, but also in our bodies, our breath, and our nervous system, then perhaps the question isn't, do I have enough love in my life? But rather, where might I today, right now, create the conditions for love to arise so I may experience this biological idea of love? Where today might I create those conditions for love to arise in my life? She says that love asks for very little: presence, a sense of felt safety, and a willingness to slow down. When we do that, each small moment of connection doesn't just feel good, it builds us. So we pause in this space, not to stop, but to pivot towards connection, towards care, and towards what makes us most fully human. So thank you, friends, for joining us today, for watching the recording. We hope you'll join us again next week. Next week, we're focusing on molecules of emotion. Woohoo! So we're continuing our theme for Valentine's, or February Heart. Molecules of Emotion by Candace Pert. Again, oh my God, this is a big book. Amazing book looking at the science that actually connected how the mind-body connection is real. Amazing. So we encourage you to join us next week. And the following week is Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. So why do we need sleep? Sleep and dreams. It also connects us to love and experience and all of the beautiful things. So we'll go through those in the next couple of weeks. We hope you join us. But for now, would love to just see, Colin, if you have any final takeaways, any final ideas that are just blossoming from our discussions today.
No, I think that you've really wrapped us up quite well. I will say that in case my daughter watches this, I've been talking about my sons, but I want to share this with my daughter, this video. And so that opportunity to connect with a human who, that child that came into the home and thought of you as one thing and then grew up and found out that you're not all that. And then you recalibrate in that relationship, and now you're both acknowledging the value of that shared moment, and those shared moments, sometimes just hearing a voice. You talked about the part of the love is you've got to have the sensation there. Sometimes just hearing the voice of that loved one is just enough. And so I just want to say thank you, Maggie. I'm grateful for this space that you've created. It's very safe, and I might say loving space. I can feel it. It's an invitation into a very wonderful part of you. And so thank you.
Thank you, Colin. And again, I can't do this alone. We are humans, and we are, shared creatures. We are here to meet and connect and explore this amazing thing called life. So, with full love and gratitude that you are here today, sharing in this space with me today. So, thank you so much for joining in. The QR code to join us for next time and to sign up for a newsletter. And as a reminder, if this is your first time joining us, what we're doing here is not just reading books or sharing ideas. This space, Pause and Pivot, is a space of return, a place to come back to ourselves, to one another, and to what matters most, especially in times that feel uncertain or divided. Personally, I feel we live in a beautifully diverse, multicultural world, but we don't all share the same languages, foods, traditions, histories, or even ways of seeing life. And yet beneath those differences, there is something we hold in common. That desire to live with dignity, meaning, and a sense of belonging. A desire to flourish, and not just individually, but together. So this space of Pause and Pivot is for those who want to pause long enough to take back their inner calm, and then pivot towards ways of living that honor our shared humanity. It is for people who want to act from values rather than react from fear, and who believe that awareness, courage, and compassion are muscles we can strengthen over time. So each week, join us. We use books as our portals, drawing from ancient wisdom and modern science, from psychology, health, spirituality, culture, and consciousness, to help us design our days and our lives with greater intention. Not perfectly, just honestly. So if something from today's conversation stayed with you, I invite you to carry it into the week ahead. Maybe a small practice, a question, or simply a new way of noticing your inner and outer world. And if you'd like to continue the journey with us, I hope you'll join us for our next Pause and Pivot conversation, where we'll be exploring molecules of emotion. You're always welcome to join us live or to listen later on in the Pause and Pivot podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your presence, your curiosity, and your willingness to keep choosing what it means to be fully human. Until next time, pause gently, pivot wisely, and take good care.